Hello and welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I'm Brenda and we're here today doing part 2 of our sunflower sew-along. This is the sunflower quilt we're going to be making. Now, last week we talked about preparing our fabrics, picking our palette, and starching them. And we're starching them because as a beginner, a lot of beginners have problems with bias. And a lot of these pieces are cut on the bias, so we have to be very careful with them. So let's get into the actual cutting and cutting with the templates and then marking the fabric on the back, right, for your sewing lines. So come on in a little closer. We're going to have just a blast today, okay? Come on. Okay, we're here. Now I've layered 3 pieces because I'm comfortable with cutting 3 pieces. And I'm just going to square up our lines. These are the colors I'm using for the center and the petals. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to flip this around and cut off the selvage edge. Now, when I'm doing this, I line this up along this line here, along the top edge that I just cut. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do from there is, this is our pattern. So we're going to cut this first and then this. You always cut your largest pieces first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up right along this edge here. And I'm going to move it a little closer to me so it's a little bit more comfortable for me to cut. And I'm hoping you can see this. I probably should get my klutz glove because that would be not a bad idea. These are all short cuts. And I know you are making templates of these, but since I have these plastic templates, I can cut directly from them. And I linked them in the show notes from last week, and I'll link them, try and remember to link them again here today. So yeah, the other one, I need the other finger. This one. There we go. Get my klutz glove on. Okay. So let's get the hexagon first. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to make a table runner as well. So now these will go into my little scrap box. You just want to go past just a bit, past those lines. And now I gotta turn this one, because I'm not gonna cut into my wrist. That would be bad. Okay, so there's our, let's see if it all cut. And I have a couple places where it didn't cut through. And a couple of threads that didn't quite make it. And this. Maybe I should have time to change my blade. Okay, so I now have three cut. And there's, like you see a little notch there? Well, I can just clean that up. That's going to be fine. I can clean that up in a bit. Now, I'm going to show you how I found the most efficient way to do this. Now, this point is the same, and as long as that's not cut right into the circle, or the angle, you've got 2 sides already cut. So I'm just going to line this up like so. Finish cutting this edge up and check, make sure I didn't move it. And, oh dear, there we go. I'm so glad I have a board that I can rotate. There we go. Now, there's the first of 3, right? So I'm going to finish cutting the other 5 out of this piece here, out of this area here, and we'll come back. Okay, we finished cutting the 6 diamonds that we need and the 1 hexie, and yes, I trimmed it all off, but we've got this all done. The yellow wasn't quite long enough to make 3 diamonds, so we had to add another piece. But now we've got page 1 of our cutting done, so let's head off to page 2. while we got the flowers. Now, with page 2, there's options. There's options. So option 1 and 2 is basically you cut a square, 3.5-inch square, and then you cut smaller squares from your background color. In my case, it's going to be brown. So the yellow and the red are for option 1 and 2, and the orange is option 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these aside for now, and I'm going to just work with the option 1 and 2, and then we'll get to the orange. I'll show you it's a little different cutting, but this makes the cutting so much faster. So much faster. Well, first off, we're going to line this up. I'm going to get some stuff out of the way here. So now you can use a 2-ruler method or a 1-ruler method, and this sometimes, instead of rotating and rotating and rotating, oops, let's get the yellow just lined up just a bit better. You can use a 2-ruler method. So on my Olaf has a little bit finer measurements than the Omni Grid. So I want to check, make sure that's at the 3.5, and I slide up and I slide down. Yes, I'm going to make a perfect 3.5-inch cut and get my klutz glove on. And there we go. That's our first cut. Now, because this is 3.5, I'm only going to get like 4. So I'm going to cut another 3.5 right away. So, oops, just move that out of the way and get this all lined up as best I can. There we go. Check the top. Check the bottom. Looks good. Ooh, I just moved it. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay. Now I can just layer these two on top of each other. Okay. And I'm just going to take my glove off for a sec, just to make sure everything's lined up along this edge. And I can cut 2 at a time. Cut 4 of them at a time. So now I'm just going to put this back on here. And I want to cut 3 now because I'm cutting 2 at a time, 2 of each color at the same time. Okay. 2, 4, 2, 4, and 6. Now the rest I'm going to cut into 2-inch by 3.5-inch strips because that's what I'm managing my scrap bits with. Okay? And we'll be back now to cut the sashing. Or the orange. Sorry, the orange is next. Okay, now for the third option, and these are options. If you only want to do, let's say, option 2 for your small flower petals or option 1, by all means go for it. But this is option 3, and this one I decided I was going to do an orange for me. So this is my background and this is my color. So I'm going to cut a 3.5-inch strip out of the orange, just quickly test it. And since it's one layer, I won't need my klutz glove. Just move this out of the way. So this is where, if you have that Tri-Rex ruler, the Tri-Tool, this ruler here, makes this block really quick work because you basically just line it up on the flat edge is on the top, and you quickly just cut through. Okay. You cut through just like that, and you have, this is the top of your pattern, just like so. So I'll cut the other 6 and then we'll get on to the backgrounds. Okay, we're back now with the browns, or my background. So what I'm going to do, you know how to cut a 1.5 inch rectangle from a 1.5 inch strip. So we're not even going to show you how to do that. You want a 2 inch strip to cut 12 out of each of these. This, by the way, I said so cut another 6. No, you only cut 6 for each flower. But this is the option you might have a little bit of issue with if you've never worked with a Tri-Rex tool, because it's this little notch right there that helps you line up to sew this. So when we'll do this one first, and we'll just see how this all goes. So I'm going to cut, so this is like 4 different layers. This is a beautiful piece of fabric here, but it has been in my stash forever. So now it's going to be used, fully used. So I'm going to cut my 3.5 inch strip out of here. And I probably don't need something that big, but oh well. Okay, and while I'm here, I am going to cut my 2 inch strip and my 1.5 inch strip, because then I know I've got enough fabric, and then the rest can go into my scraps, or I can just process it when we're off camera here. So there's my 1.5 inch strip. Now, okay, I'm just going to see what I got left here. Woohoo! I have a 3.5 inch strip. I'm going to cut another one and just get ready to process it. This is how people process their stuff very quickly. While you've got your cutting tools, you might as well be cutting, right? Now, one of the things I am going to talk to you about is if you're cutting, your background's got like colors like this, but you want the brown to show, you don't cut anything from here or here, right? Like even here might be a little, there's too much green, that beautiful teal. But you know, the same in the back. So you kind of want to cut them one at a time, especially when you've got something like this much color in. Same with the 2 inch strips. Now, when it comes to this, you want to cut 6 one way and 6 in reverse. So you can either do this the one way where you have both sides, you do 2 at a time, right? But you've lined them up like this. So you can actually see what you're cutting, right? So, and I know the end is over here. I think with this fabric, I'm going to just get rid of my selvage and see how much I can get out of here. Hang on. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to cut one at a time, just so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So you're going to line this one up on the 3.5. If you have this tool here, because I find this one's really invaluable. It works out to a 1:2 ratio ruler as well. So now you're going to make sure that little end gets cut, right off, and then you're going to flip it around. So 6 of them you do where you can read this when it's facing you, and 6 you do where it's reverse. So I've got another one here I can cut right away. Just a sec. Let me get, so here I've got 2 going the same way. Well, when I flip this over so that this is reverse, I now get the matching pair. And I remember to cut that little nib off. This little nib here helps you line it up, and you can see I have a pair. A cute little pair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep cutting, and we'll meet you back here to work on the sashing. Okay, just one thing before we move on to the sashing. This option 3, cutting 1 reverse cuts, or cut 6 reverse cut 6 the right way. If you doubled your fabric where the wrong sides are facing each other in a strip, and you didn't have to worry about color in that strip, you could just go 1 at a time. Like, you know, you can cut 2 at a time, and then when you open it up, it's a mirror image, right? But I didn't do that because there was no strip, part of that strip that was all brown where I could do 2, you know, cut 2 at a time. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that. Next, we're moving on to the sashing. What? The sashing. So I opted in my quilt not to do option 1 at all. Because I mean, basically it's a 3.5 inch square, and you cut 2 equilateral triangles, and then you sew them onto each side, right? Basically, you're going to create this shape when you're done. I do want to talk to you about option 2 and option 3, because they're a little different. They're a little bit trickier. Now this is option 2, and what I've done is I've cut it out. But when you're sewing these together, you're sewing along this line. Now, the other thing is, because I don't have a template that I've been able to purchase, I made my template, and when I put the template down on the fabric, I couldn't see it. Because if it's clear and then you put a ruler on top of it, you can't see anything, right? So I drew a little black line around here, and hopefully you'll be able to see it better, you know. And I also did that one with this one too. Now you can also see I punched my holes in at the right places with the awl, the pointy sharp, you know, weapon. And we're just gonna run through cutting the sashing. Now I've cut my sashing already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna lay this out, and I'm gonna cut a 3.5 inch strip off of both of these fabrics. And I'm just gonna lay this down and grab my other, grab my other ruler, and I'm gonna see where I'm at. 3.5 inch, I just want a 3.5 inch strip. Okay, so there we line it up. We go this way and that way, yep, it works. There we go. So there's our cut, and this fabric now can be processed. And what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this one, this odd shaped one. Now you can label this is your sewing line here, right? If it helps you do this, but it does end up being exactly 3 inches. Now I have another piece here, so I'm going to cut them the same way. Now, the fastest way to do this is you lay it down along your line. Now you have an option whether you want to just cut like this and lay it down, right? And cut like this, and then release that and move it out of the way, and then reposition it. I mean, that works too. This might be a little bit safer for you if you're not really fond. The other way, of course, is to lay it on top and then try and find that exact edge without shaving any of your template off. And that goes into, that's garbage, string bin. And then, now we want to move it so we just get that little bit of corner out. Okay. And then this little bit here, I have cut off just to reduce bulk. And it didn't cut. There we go. Just to reduce bulk. Now, you see these two pieces are the same, and you're going, how do I put these together? Well, as soon as you sew them like this, right, you're going to have, and you got like 1/2 inch overlap or whatever, they're going to fit like this. So now when you're doing your quilting, you could put 2 very artistic shaped leaves in here on either side of this piece, right? Or you don't have to do this. I mean, if you just want to do the sashing that looks like that, that looks perfectly good too. So let's cut that sashing. And one of the big advantages about this sashing, once you cut it out, you're done. You can just start sewing them in place, right? So I'm going to line it up. It takes a 3.5 inch width across from here. So I am going to put my ruler down over my template. Now you just run your finger across here first. If you can feel your template, don't cut, because you'll trim off your template. Right, and then you just move it like so. And now, cutting for these tends to get a little, oof, okay, here we go. Yeah, I got a little space. But you can see what I mean. I couldn't see my template at all, right? Once the ruler's on top of it. So that's why I had to draw the black around it. Okay, I'll just move that one out of the way. And cut. And there we are. There we go. We're done. So those are the options. Let's get to the drawing part now. Okay, on page 5 of your pattern that you've downloaded, now like I say, I'm going to link this pattern again here. On page 5, there's the baby sunflower quilt block, and this is this block. It's just a cute little block. The construction is going to be the same way the bigger one is, but I thought if any of you would like to do this one by hand, I mean the pieces are really too small to sew with a sewing machine, but it's there if you want to explore any more of this. So what we're doing now is I'm going to show you how to mark these. Now these two are the simplest, right? Because basically you're going to mark the 4 corners in with X's, right? And you know, you're going to draw the 1/4, you know, like you can either draw your entire line or just mark the X's where they would intersect, because that's going to give you a really good clear 1/4 inch line. So but you have to do it on all of them, right? So you would put it down here and then you would make an X. Now your little X marks the spot is right there. So that's where, you know, if you want to, you can draw your lines for sewing if you're doing a hand sewing. If you're doing it by sewing machine, don't worry about it, because you just, you know, your 1/4 inch seam will work. Now both of these, the red one and the yellow ones, are stitch and flips, both of these two options. So what you do is you take this. Now if you're hand sewing, what you're going to do is you're going to draw your line here right across on an angle. Let's see if I can't get that a little closer for you to see. You're going to draw this at an angle, and then you're going to stitch just kissing this side of that line. So when your line is here, you just want to just go right up along here, and you want to go from a 1/4 inch in to a 1/4 inch in. So you just basically draw your line. It's a flip and stitch for assembly for these squares, because it's easier to do than have all those weird little angles to work with, right? So if you're doing this by sewing machine, you already know how to do this. You just whip along. If you have to draw your line, you draw your line, but you're just kissing the line on this side, right? So and you mark all of your blocks. These little blocks get marked on a diagonal. The same with these ones on the red, right? So this now, the orange, you don't have a template. Well, if you've made your templates, you're going to do the same thing. Keep in mind, this flat top here is always going to be your top, right? So you're going to go and do your marking with your ruler or your template, and this, you know, you're going to be doing X marks the spot. Now this is where this little notch comes in, and I'll explain more of this as we go along. The little notch on the end of this corner helps you line up this block for sewing. Whether you're hand stitching this block or you're machine stitching it, that little notch is really important right there. So you would mark your lines dot to dot, and then you would sew across that, right? If you're hand sewing, right, you've got from your dot to your dot, or your line of hand sewing, right? If you're machine sewing, you're just going to go straight across like you would, right? That's the same kind of assembly, but you need to mark all your pieces, and that can take you a while to do. And with the dark, if you are using dark colors like this brown, I found it's going to be like a toss-up between, can I see the dot with pencil, or can I see it with a yellow pencil? because yellow will mark on here. You can see this yellow line, right? Or at least I can see it right there. You see the line I did? Hopefully it's focusing. And it's right here. Yeah, okay. So I'm getting from a cameraman that, yeah, we got it right. So now with your diamonds, we're going to do the same thing, except we have templates made, like from our plastic, that we have put little holes in with our awl. So we can mark our holes first, or we can mark our little diamonds first. And that is very quick assembly. Now, if you want to draw your lines, your seam lines, your sew lines, you can. But you can also mark your thumbnail at 1/4 inch with ink, or 1/4 inch washi tape, and then seal it with nail polish, and it will keep on your non-dominant thumb, right? Because then that's a real handy little ruler as you're you know, hand sewing, right? It's up to you how you want to do this. Every hand sewer does it different. And the same again with these templates here, the hexies. And now we get to the leaves. If you want, especially this one, because okay, let's get this lined up again. This is what you're sewing. This is what you're sewing, right? So your sew line is here, this line, right? So some people, what they do is they mark their sew line differently. They'll draw an arrow on either side, just so they know now that's the line you sew on. Because it is an odd shaped piece. And when we get to the sewing part, I'll teach you some needle matching to get your 1/4 inch seam. But you would just mark you would take your templates and you would put them down, and you're going to mark out your X's. Oh, this one's not gonna mark because I put the awl in the wrong way. Okay, now you're gonna watch me stab myself. Hopefully it won't be too painful. Maybe I should get my husband to do this. Anyway, so what you're gonna do is you don't press too hard, because you do push the plastic one way and you might not be able to get your pencil through. But like I say, everybody does this different. But that's what you're doing this week, is cutting everything and marking everything. No, and it's not going to mark. So I might have to do the ruler method. So there's your mark, right? And your arrow as to where you sew it. But those will help you join up your sashing pieces. And again, with this, same thing, right? You're going to have your template, you're going to mark your piece. And of course, I did this the wrong way too. Yeah, okay. No, it's the holes aren't big enough. So I'm going to have my hubby make my awls bigger. Or my holes for my awls bigger. Okay. Now, I am working ahead of you, so I have all my sashing pieces sewn together, and because I'm making a table runner and a quilt, right? I've got all my random greens that I'm going to use as my sunflower leaves. You pick whatever colors you want. Don't feel that you have to pick my color palette. The biggest part of quilting sometimes is what brings you joy, right? If you want to do pink, gray, and white because you love pink and you love gray, go for it. Don't listen to the color palette choices I've made, right? Now, I'm just going to give you a quick little preview of the options that I made, or the progress I've made. Now, one of the other questions we got when we get into the sewing, and I know I'm covering something from next week, but Christmas is also coming and people get busier, or they need something to do. You can combine a hand sewing project with a machine sewing project. Now, I have sewn these on a sewing machine, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to now mark my lines, right? Because I'm going to do some hand piecing and some sewing machine piece. And this is a fast way to move forward, is, you know, like if you've done flip and stitch corners to the point you can do them in a coma, just, yeah, you don't want to be doing them by hand now, right? So, I mean, it's up to you how you want to do this, but so there it is. I think, you know, cut your pieces, mark your templates, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so you've got a lot to do this week. You're going to be cutting out all of your fabric, or all of your fabric according to the pattern, and then you're going to be marking it all. Now, if you're sewing by sewing machine, right, I mean, you could do the simple flip and stitch and the Tri-Rex corner, you know, these Tri-Rex squares. If you're hand sewing, you could start on that, because that's what next week's going to be about. Sewing just the small petal together, because that small petal is what you need to put the larger petal to the center. So this is where we're going to head next, right, is these small petals. The sashing pieces, you can use, you know, you can take your time getting those ready, right? So you see here I've used the 2 triangles and the square. I haven't done it on this one that I'm doing. If you want to do this or something like that, you're more than welcome to do it. So remember, you also have a bonus pattern in here for the baby. And yeah, we're on our way. We're moving forward. So I hope you have a fabulous week ahead. We love to see you come back. Okay, you have a great one. Bye. Hello everyone, just a quick reminder, this is the quilt we're going to start doing our sew along in the beginning of December 2021. This is a beautiful hand-pieced, hand-quilted. This is a beginner quilt for hand quilting. This is also an intermediate if you're using a sewing machine. And we're going to start this one at the beginning of December 2021. So if you're watching this 8 years from now, don't worry, it's a free pattern. It'll always remain a free pattern. We had a lot of fun doing this with our students, and we had a very enjoyable time. So if you like the videos, and you like this challenge, and you'd like to start a quilt along, comment below, but like, share, and subscribe with your friends. We are so happy that you're back with us if you're a subscriber. But if you're a new subscriber, please join. This is going to be so much fun. Okay, you have a great day. Bye.